UNICEF, football, I mean, why is it such a great partnership, and how does football really help to change the world?
Well, I think sport is such a powerful tool. It always has been, especially football. You know, I've been to many places around the world, Sierra Leone, the Philippines, and I've seen how important the sport is to these young kids and people around these townships, and that's the power of the game. So it's a perfect mixture. You know, the UNICEF, the amount of great work that they do for people around the world, children around the world, and then obviously football, the power of that, those two coming together, it's a big thing.
So Memphis Depay, how do you think he can grow into the number 7 shirt at Manchester United?
I mean, it's a big shirt to grow into, but I think that he's a player that is a young talent. He seems to have great confidence, so I think that when you come to a club like Manchester United, you have to have that confidence, but you have to also have that humble side of your personality, and I think you know, that's what United fans expect, you know, but the confidence is obviously there because he's playing so well and he's scored some big goals. So, you know, I think that he can handle it, but, you know, still early days, but fingers crossed he continues to play and with the passion that he's showing.
You said you saw something in Giggs, even as a player, that you thought might make a good manager. What are the strengths and qualities you see in Zidane that might make him a good Real Madrid manager one day?
I think he's the same as Giggsy. You know, Zizou has that ruthless side, and he always has done as a player. You know, the way he played, the passion that he played with, Giggsy was exactly the same. You see that in players sometimes, and then you know at some point they're going to become a manager and a top manager.
And another player, often compared with Zidane as well, who you played with, Paul Scholes. How would you compare Zidane and Scholes, both their qualities, their styles and their strengths?
It's really hard to separate the two of them because they're both quiet in character, but when you get them on the field, their talent is undeniable, you know, in both ways. And I was lucky enough to obviously grow up with Scholesy, and then I was lucky enough to then go on to Real Madrid and be able to play for 3 years with probably the best player that I've ever played with. So, you know, the two players being on the pitch at the same time in November, it's going to be pretty amazing.
I think a lot of people waiting to see that, definitely.
Yeah, me too.
You've played all over the world. How would you say, what benefits do you think young English players could gain by going outside the Premier League?
I think they could gain a lot by you know, playing abroad, because it helps your game in different ways. You know, for instance, when I went from Manchester United in the Premiership and then obviously went to Real Madrid in La Liga, technically I had to change my game, and it had to improve a lot, and I think that it did over time. But when you go to a different league and when you're playing in different you know, different cities around the world, you know, you learn to adapt yourself, and I think that I had to with the cities that I played in and the clubs that I played in.
And on that note as well, obviously you say that you can see Giggs becoming the United manager, whether it's 5, 10 years, however long it takes. Would he benefit as well from maybe leaving United and going abroad and experiencing other cultures of football? I mean,
maybe, but I think that, you know, Giggsy is a one-off. You know, he's a one-off in the sense that he chose to spend his whole career at this one club, this unbelievable club, and he was lucky enough to actually be able to spend, you know, the time here. We all dream of it, but it, you know, in reality, it's very hard to do. And Giggsy was lucky enough to be one of those one-off players that actually had the amount of time that he did, and the amount of years and the amount of success that he did to stay at Manchester United. And that's why I think that he will then go on to be a great manager for this team, because he knows what it's like to be successful here. He knows what it's like to not win here. So him going in as a manager, you know, people respect him as a player, people will respect him as a person and as a manager, and he'll want to win for this club.
Daley Blind obviously scored that stunning, well, he actually didn't score, he created the goal with that stunning cross. He obviously did the same for Holland. Who would you say is your favourite crosser of the ball at the moment, as obviously the master of the art back in your playing days?
Favourite crosser of the ball? Oh, I actually don't know at the moment. I think the game's definitely changed over the years. You know, obviously when I was playing back in the day. You know, it was very much about getting a few yards and crossing the ball, and I was lucky enough obviously to have great strikers like Yorkie, Coley, you know, scoring, Teddy, you know, scoring on the end of it. But I think the game's changed now, and there's not so much of that these days, but there's still a few players that can cross the ball, but it's hard to mention, hard to name one.
I would definitely come and watch them. You know, I think as a Manchester United player and a fan for so many years,